Right. Are you ready to get spooky?
So, all right. Welcome back to another glorious episode of the Bunny Rabbit's Hole. All right. If you haven't been here before, my name is Jason. This is my co-host.
My name is Craig.
All right. So both of our parents were weird. They both named us My Name Is, and then our last name is an actual first name, which not many people have that kind of name. But we found two people that have the same first name, and we decided to host this little show called the Bunny Rabbit's Hole.
Right, and it's odd because Eminem ripped off our names for his song.
He did. I want some royalties, goddammit. Did you hear that he, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, and Kendrick Lamar are the Super Bowl halftime show this year?
No, well, that's actually pretty cool.
It's a lot better than the last couple of years.
Yep.
I mean, granted, Katy Perry gave us the Left Shark, which it was a great meme for a while, but it's dated and it's played.
Right.
And I hated Beyonce's thing, and I don't even remember who was there last year because I didn't fucking watch it.
The last one I remember was seeing Janet Jackson's boob and liking it.
Yeah.
Where is the Super Bowl this year?
It is in shit. I don't remember. I think Levi Stadium. Oh, it's in LA, I think. I don't fucking know.
Is
one of the new stadiums that just got built.
Well, I mean, Snoop lives in LA, so weed's got to be legal there. Because he's going to be smoking a big fat blunt on stage.
Right.
All right. Anyway, this is the Bunny Rabbit's Hole, and you just experienced your very first Bunny Rabbit's Hole. If you have not watched the show before or listened,
we normally don't. We normally pick a topic each and every week, and that's your line. So I'm going to let you finish it.
And we do research on it, both for and against, not just what fits our narrative. You're easily offended. Fuck you.
Bye-bye. All right. Now, with that being said, what are we going to talk about today? Or what are we supposed to be talking about today?
Well, today being October 1st, pretty much this year and last year, basically the spookiest 2 years ever because we've all been locked down. Well, not really locked down anymore, but we probably should be.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about like paranormal stuff. Like I made Jason watch this YouTube channel called Mindseed TV. And we had to do them because they stole my old band name. I'm sure they had no idea we weren't big. We only played locally, so it is what it is. But yeah. So I watched a shitload of their videos because I have a tendency to binge this shit. But it's basically ghost hunting videos.
Right. And you know, it was an interesting watch. I watched 3 of their episodes, and then I got about 5 or 6 minutes into another one and realized these aren't the same guys.
Right.
So, but a lot of these do tend to become formulaic and they become repetitive, if you will. But there was some interesting things that we really want to touch base on this one, because you originally came up with the idea because you wanted me to watch a specific scene.
Mm-hmm. Did you get it queued up?
I do. Do we want to just show it? Or do you want to give some context?
We'll give some context. So they are in an old hunting cabin, all hardwood floors, where the owner of it accidentally shot and killed his best friend in it.
Mm-hmm.
And this happened years ago, and they were asked to go and investigate it. And so they do. Now, mind you, going into this, we're both skeptics. We want to believe, but we're skeptics.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
we're not skeptics of the paranormal, but we're skeptics of these videos.
Right. Yeah, because we both have had experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so in this video where we cue it up, you're gonna notice someone falling, and I want you to, for those of you that are only listening, not watching, we'll pause it from time to time, and I'll recap what happened in the video for you.
Okay.
So that way, you're not missing anything. So go ahead with it, Jason.
All right. So let's just go for it. Why is that black?
So if we don't get anything on the yes nos, I'm thinking to myself, like, maybe we just.
Are you seeing it?
No.
Dude, you
Me
good?
either.
That's weird.
Damn it. That was weird.
Yeah.
Just you could hear it.
You could hear it, but yeah. That is weird.
Well, God damn it, stop.
What's under apps?
So if we don't get
Technical
anything on the
difficulties.
yes nos, I'm thinking to myself, like, maybe we just wrap
Would
it
you shut up?
tonight, honestly.
Motherfucker, shut up. Nobody gives a shit.
What the fuck? Yo. Oh, no.
Shut up. Jesus fucking Christ. Oh, for some reason with this going on, I can't I can't control the volume or the video image on the website for some reason.
Weird.
Yeah, I had it queued up. It was all the way down to like the countdown.
Oh, all right. Well, we won't play it then. We'll just talk.
All right, we'll just talk about it.
So
Okay.
what happens is there's three guys, Tanner, Colton, and Casey. So they're all walking towards the stairs because they want to go down to the lower level.
Mm-hmm.
So Colton and Casey get on the stairs, and then you see from Tanner's camera, because that's how it goes. It goes from person's camera to person's camera. And then his camera starts fumbling and then goes dark and you hear a thud.
Yeah.
When it switches to either Colton or Casey's camera, whichever it is. And they zoom up, you hear the thud on theirs. So they both turn around and they see probably, I would say from like the rib cage, like the bottom of the rib cage up of Tanner laying sprawled out, arms out in front of him, his head lifted up. A really glazed, shocked look on his face, like he's just kind of out of it.
Like he just got steam. He looks like a Detroit Lions quarterback. You know, like after he's been sacked multiple times, he's just glassy-eyed, dazed look.
Right, and then he goes to place for the Rams and just tears shit up. I mean, but so he's looking like that, and they're like, "Hey, are you okay?" And then all of a sudden, zip, he's gone. I mean, he just fluid motion, no jerkiness, nothing. I mean, it just like if this is him, it was just zip.
Yeah, it was almost like the magic trick of pulling the tablecloth out from underneath everything. I mean, it was that quick.
Right. And he probably traveled like a good 15 feet because his camera was still sitting there and filming him. And you didn't see him get pulled. No, I think it's somebody else's camera when they got
somebody else's camera from the top because they ran back up the stairs to see him. And by the time they get to the top, you see Tanner crawling back from the other side of the room.
Right. Now, so let's break this down.
Okay.
So this is an old hunting cabin with wood floors.
Yes.
So if it was somebody doing it, you would have heard it.
You would have heard some shuffling.
You would have heard some shuffling or something. Nobody can go through a hardwood floor area without making a sound. It is absolutely impossible.
Right. Now, yeah. And the time between him getting pulled and them running up the stairs to check on him is literally like 1001, 1002, 1000. And then you're seeing him.
Right. And, you know, it's, so if anybody if anybody had done that and tried to run away, you would have heard them running. They would have saw him because there was nowhere for them to actually go that quick and get out of sight.
Right. And there's only the three of them to begin with.
Right. And I'm just going to wager a guess. Tanner looks to be probably about, I'm going to say like 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", somewhere in that area because the other two seem tall. And probably a good, at least 185 pounds.
He's built like a wrestler.
Right.
Not a pro wrestler, but like, like a wrestler, an MMA fighter type of wrestler.
Right. So for somebody to pull 185, let's just say 185 person that fast without no jerking motion or anything. It's just zip out of sight. It's impossible. It would take in multiple people, and they still wouldn't be able to do it without like jerking or something. Then you would have heard tons of footsteps.
Exactly. And then, so here's the part that either I have a hard time with, because you would have heard the footsteps, but the person that goes up the stairs, the camera that you have has a light on it, and they walk room to room. Now, and they're pretty quick. Now, what would the person that, let's say we'll just say it's one person for argument's sake. One person strong enough to pull Tanner out of the way, and they had to drag him all the way across the room because you didn't hear him shuffle to to that thing to shuffle back. It would there was no time. When the camera gets to the top of the stairs, you see him, he's basically crab walking back from the other side of the room. Now, if there was somebody else up there, they would have had to have found a really good hiding spot, yanked him out of the way, jumped into a hiding spot, and got out of the range of the light, or even casting a shadow while the camera was going from room to room to room.
Right.
So that was the part that I was really like, how, I mean, I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibilities that somebody could have pulled that off, because we see it done in Hollywood all the time. But this was a shoestring budget type of scenario where they ran up the stairs, and there couldn't have been a harness that pulled him. There couldn't have been, because I mean, fuck it was over.
The only explanation that I could come up with to debunk it, and like you said, shoestring budget and stuff, would be creative editing, where you edit out the sounds of the footprints and edited out everything else and sped up the withdrawal level.
Right. Because, and the thing is, sound editing like that is really time consuming, tedious, and hard to do.
Right.
To just isolate the footprints, the shuffling, out of there, because you still hear the other guy going up the stairs.
Right.
You hear Tanner shuffling coming back from the other side of the room by the time he gets there, and he's not on the you still see him come shuffling or crab walking from the other side of the room.
Right.
So creative editing I'm not saying that it can't be done, because obviously it does happen and people do it, but I don't know if they're that good editors.
And honestly, I don't think they're that good at actors to fake it.
No, and okay, so let's go into his face.
Yeah, that was a look of utter shock. I mean, when he's sitting there just dazed, and all of a sudden he's yanked and he scuttles back, and then when he turns and faces them, that was a look of abject fear on his face.
He had the look of somebody who just got into a car wreck.
Yeah.
They're standing on the side of the road.
Or somebody who just watched somebody chop up their best friend and just turn into them with a knife.
Yeah. I mean, it was, and he was visible. You could hear it in his voice when he was talking later on how, because they go downstairs later and they're, talking, do you want to spend the night in the home? And he's like, fuck no. I want to go now. And but he had this his voice was there was, you could sense fear and anguish.
Yeah.
He was, if there was fight or flight, he was definitely ready for flight.
Right. Yeah. If you get a chance, watch their documentary. It's called Broken Silence or something like that.
Okay.
It's like an hour and 20 minutes long, and that's what I was telling you about on the phone last night. Those weird footprints in the baby powder.
Yeah.
But they see what makes them a bit set apart from the other shows that you'll see out there because they use a Ouija board.
Right.
I have never seen. Zach probably does because he's an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
But most of them don't because it's just a bad idea.
Yes.
So, and there's an episode where they're using the Ouija board, and like something happens right next to him, and Tanner kind of jumps and hands come off the Ouija board. Well, first rule of using Ouija board is once you make contact, you don't let up the grip or you don't take your hands off.
Right. And that you have to close the connection.
Right. You have to go to goodbye so it can be done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, tell about what happened after that.
So after that, whatever it was, followed Tanner home. Are you talking about in the episode that we watched or in that documentary?
In that documentary, you're about the baby powder.
So,
I think that's pretty interesting.
So that part of it, the Ouija board part didn't actually happen in that episode. It was in a previous investigation,
Oh, okay.
which I had seen. But in that documentary, they went and they investigated this one place. They go back and they're crashing out at Tanner's house because he's just feeling uneasy. And Casey's a good friend. They've known each other forever.
Mm-hmm.
So he's hanging out there, and middle of the night, Casey gets up because he's thirsty. So, and they got static cams set up, you know, in both bedrooms and in the kitchen and in the hallway. And because they've done these investigations, know when energy feels off, there's something up.
Right.
So they set up all these static cameras, and the first night, Casey gets up in the middle of the night to get a glass of water. So he comes downstairs, the light's on in the kitchen. He doesn't think anything of it. He goes, grabs a glass, fills it with water, takes a drink, closes the cupboard, goes over, turns off the kitchen light, takes his glass back with him to his bedroom. Approximately a minute to 2 minutes after he leaves the kitchen, the light comes back on. So when they review the footage in the morning, they see that the light came back on. And Casey said, you know, was talking to Tanner. He's like, so when I went in there, I noticed the light was on, but I just figured you left it on.
I figured you were a dick and left the light on.
Right. Well, it's his house. He can do what he wants. And Tanner's like, no, man, I turned it off before I went to bed. He's like, oh. So at this point, they're like, there's something up. We got to figure it out. So before they went to bed the second night, they take baby powder and sprinkle it all over the hallway, outside their doors, out into the kitchen and everything else. And then they go to bed. Well, in the middle of the night, kitchen light flicks on. I believe some cupboard doors went to open and close.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes to the hallway and you hear something running, and then it hits the baby powder, and it looks like cloven hooves, where it's like, here, I will.
Like Pan or Mr. Tumnus were running through there having a square dance.
I'm actually going to draw it for you real quick and show it to you. It's going to be a rough, crude sketch, but they look like that.
Oh.
Which is creepy, but like the end, they were much longer, obviously.
Like a deformed chicken foot.
Right. So there's like several of those leading up to his door, and then he blows his door open, scares the shit out of him. He rolls out of bed and everything, because who wouldn't if your bedroom door blew open?
Right. So
then I can't remember what happened after that, to be honest with you.
But
I know they both got up.
Right. I mean, but that's crazy enough. I mean, because that with the footprints that you drew there, that puts it into the realms of paranormal, demonology, or even alien.
Right. And I believe one of the house they investigated, but at one point there was one episode where they were investigating this house, and the homeowner had named the ghost scratch because she constantly heard scratching all over the place.
Right.
And it was weird because when they're investigating the house, lots of the doors had scratches all over them and in rows of 3.
Oh, wow.
And if you know anything about demonology, 3 is a symbol for, it's not necessarily 666, but everything comes in 3s.
Everything happens in 3s. 3
knocks, 3 scratches, all that stuff. So, but it's interesting.
Yeah. And, it's let's go back to the Ouija board thing for a minute, because there's so many movies that have given us rules on what you should or shouldn't do with a goddamn Ouija board, and taking them into places that for a fact were haunted.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, it's just bad form. Why the fuck would you sit down and do that? It's almost like the little girls that want to do some of the light as feather, stiff as a board type of shit,
Right.
in a cemetery, and then weird shit happens to them in the future. It's like, wow, huh? Why do you think that is? Because a lot of this shit's not games.
Right.
And I've talked about it hundreds of times on this podcast about casting sigils and stuff using chaos magic, which does in fact fucking work. Now that's just chaos magic. That's it's light. It's well, I won't say light. It's easy to do. You can get results from it, but some of this other shit can turn sinister quick, like the Moonchild ceremony that L. Ron Hubbard and was Jack Parsons tried to do, where they got a woman pregnant and that she was going to bring in the birth of the birth of Satan.
Right.
They were fooling around with powers that they didn't understand at the time, and even fucking Aleister Crowley tells them, knock it off, it's not a good idea.
Right.
That's fucking stupid.
And he was the king of bad ideas.
Exactly. Well, he did a 6-month ritual that was supposed to open a doorway to hell, and he stopped days before it was supposed to be done, and then his life went to shit after that.
Right.
I mean, he was wealthy, he was powerful, he was world known, and he ended up dying of syphilis as an old man in a 1-bedroom apartment, and nobody remembered who he was by the time he died.
Right.
They remembered his name, they remembered his exploits from when he was young, but this old beaten down man that was still there, living across the hall from you, you didn't know who he was.
Right.
He was forgotten at that point.
You didn't know he liked feces and blood and semen.
Right. Exactly. He didn't know that he liked going down on women while they're on their menstrual cycle.
Right.
But exactly. So there's a lot of bad ideas when it comes to this shit.
Right.
And so, okay, going back to, I watched a few of the episodes, and one thing that I wanted to point out was when they were talking about, mist going across the room and different, they do replays and stuff.
Yeah.
There wasn't the every time I would watch some of these things, you'd see an orb, and that goes back to Zag Baggins shit, and they look like fucking stop the presses when they see an orb on there. These guys didn't even mention it in a lot of these shots.
Right. I think I've seen one episode where they say anything about an orb.
And, you see, there were several. I mean, I only watched a couple episodes, and I saw several scenes that they replayed or showed that a fucking orb goes through there, but they're talking about something else in the scene.
Right.
They're not talking about that.
Right.
Which I thought was kind of interesting, because that's the basis of a lot of these ghost hunter things, is these light anomalies that are caught on camera is their proof of, otherworldly entities trying to communicate.
Right. Well, and like I said, the one episode where they talk about the orb, it was right before something big happened.
Mm-hmm.
And in that episode, they said, he's like, well, you see an orb there. And I said, normally I don't say anything about orbs because I don't put a lot of stock in them because it could be a bug, it could be, dust particles.
Right.
But this was just timed too perfectly.
Mm.
Now, I just watched an episode where they're investigating. Oh, I don't even remember what they were investigating, but Tanner's down in the basement in the bathroom, and he sees somebody, and he's having a conversation with this guy. The guy wasn't on camera, and you couldn't hear the guy's voice. And then later on, they talk about it. They're like, other teams that have come in here have said they've seen the apparition of an old man, and some of them have had conversations with him. Because basically he said, oh, hey, yeah, no, we have permission. We paid for access to the site.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, yeah, and we got recording equipment all around. So it was like he was being questioned on why he's there.
Huh. That's kind of creepy.
Mm-hmm. And you could tell there was somebody because the exit sign had lit up, and it only lights up when the door opens, and the red light was shining in on Tanner.
Oh.
And then I believe it went out after he was done talking to that guy.
So that's awesome.
So he had a conversation possibly with a ghost.
Yeah.
There was one episode where they took a Patreon member, their first Patreon member, out on a ghost hunt with them.
Oh, wow.
And they went to some abandoned prison that had been shut down for years.
Right.
And these three dumbasses sent this guy, and I say this, kind-heartedly about the dumbasses part, because thinking back on it, even they say that was fucking stupid. They sent this dude down this hallway to investigate. All he had was a camera and a flashlight. No radio, nothing. And the security guard had brought him there in like a golf cart and was parked well outside it, so she couldn't even see the door. And they're like checking for him on cameras and stuff, like they don't see him, and then they're like, so they all realize, hey, he doesn't have a fucking walkie. We need to go, catch up with him, because that's fucking mean. So they go down the tunnel, because they see the security guard person. Hey, did so-and-so come out? And she's like, no, he's still in there. So they went in there, walked all the way to the end of the tunnel. There's no other way out, the way he came in. And he is nowhere to be seen.
Huh.
So they come back out, and they're like, hey, I thought you said he was in there. She's like, yeah, he's not in there. She's like, what? He's not in there. Where is he? And she's like, I don't know. I thought he was in there. And they're like, well, can you call security and have him check the camera and see if he's like roaming around somewhere? She's like, oh, yeah. So she calls. The security guard had left the office and left his walkie-talkie in there. So somebody else had heard it as they were walking by, like a janitor or something, and said, hey, he's not in here, and his radio is right here. And she walked him through how to check the cameras, and they found his location because he was out wandering the grounds trying to find them.
Oh, nice.
Because he said that while he was down there, it felt like something was watching him. At one point, something flew by him. He didn't see it because he's in pitch black.
Right.
Using the camera to walk with, and the camera caught something fly by him.
Huh.
But yeah, it was, I'm like going, why would you send somebody that donated money to support your channel by themselves with no form of communication?
Yeah. You see, that's the type of shit that the only reason I watch I used to watch Zach's show was because I wanted to find out where they're going to send Aaron next.
Right.
It's like, now we're going to send Aaron down into this sewer. Like, wait, what? Then they get a Patreon guy, first person to give them money, and the first thing they do is like, yeah, we'll send him down the tunnels.
Right. So I did watch another episode today where, see, Colton won't do the Ouija board. He hates the Ouija board.
Which makes sense.
Yep. And so they talked him into doing it. So all three of them are doing it, and all of a sudden Colton's nose starts bleeding. To the
No,
point where a drop of blood lands on the Ouija board, which I don't even want to know the implications of that.
exactly.
But yeah, he was pissed.
I don't blame you.
But yeah, I mean, I mean, if you've never watched it, check it out. Mindseed TV. They like if you look under like their playlist, go through hunting purgatory. That's all their hunts.
Mm-hmm.
But they do other things too. Like they will
Like
order
what?
stuff off. Well, they will order stuff off the dark web and open it.
Never a good idea.
No, I watched one in like 10 minutes of an episode.
Mm-hmm.
It's the episode I watched 10 minutes of. Everything they brought out of that box was wrapped up in like muddy little girl dresses.
Mm.
And the implications of what all the items were adding up to, I did not want to know. I turned it off immediately.
Which is probably good for you. Yeah. See, all right. I'm not, is there the boogeyman on the dark web? Absolutely. But the biggest thing you have to worry about when ordering shit or just visiting the dark web is you don't know what the website is that you're about to go to. It's not like a Google listing where it's going to go ahead and pretty much spell out what the website's going to be about before you open it.
Right.
And when you start searching on there, you'll start seeing sites that say now CP free, meaning it's now child porn free, which that's a terrible thing to have to advertise in the first place.
Right.
But here's the big thing about searching the dark web is if you were to accidentally stroll upon one of these sites that say, that is a child pornography site that's on the dark web, is now in your search history.
Right.
And now the FBI can actually trace that shit back to you, or if that site was to get busted, they trace that back to your IP address. You're on a list where you have to go meet your neighbors every time you move.
Right.
So that's the real danger of, try to explain that one. It's like, well, why were you searching the dark web? What were you looking for, motherfucker?
Cocaine.
Yeah, exactly. So make sure you know specifically where you're going before you try to start anything like that.
Right.
Now, along those lines, I had this incident. I used to do residential remodeling, and we were doing this older home, and we were running the dryer vent through the floor and then out the side of the home. Well, we got everything all set up. I drew the shortest straw. I had to climb under the house and go crawl over and then hook up the pipe underneath the floor. So I hate crawl spaces anyway because I'm arachnophobic and there's always spiders down there and sometimes snakes. You never know what kind of critter is going to be in a crawl space, especially in an older home. So, I'm doing the old military crawl. I crawl all the way to the other side, roll my back, hook this thing up, roll back over, start military crawling out, and I stop dead in my tracks because there's a pair of old school 50s girls' saddle shoes that are dusty, sitting side by side each other, not turned or anything, like they were like somebody could have been standing in them at a certain point, just sitting there in this. I don't remember seeing them when I went in, but I sure as fuck saw them when I came out, and I ran on my hands and knees to get out of that motherfucker, and I refused to go back underneath that house.
I would too. Fuck that.
I was so freaked out by it that I should have taken a picture of it because I'm sure it would have been, scary as fuck image that may have gone viral. But I was not reaching back. I wasn't sticking around long enough to get my phone out.
Nope. Yeah, see, I watched like the second, I call it dark web, but it wasn't actually dark web. One of the fans had saw that they had, there's a couple places they went to that voodoo was involved.
Mm-hmm.
So someone sent him a voodoo doll.
Oh.
So he he opens it up, and there's 2 bird feathers in there. He pulls those out. He's like, well, I don't know what these are for. I don't know if it's some sort of protection or whatever. He's like, I don't know much about this stuff. So,
Right.
and then there's a piece of paper, and he pulls it out, and they wrote him a note. I don't remember what the note says, but they'd written it on a page from the Bible.
Oh,
And he's like, okay, I'm not a religious guy, but if I'm looking to write a note for somebody, I don't think I'm going to go rip a page out of the Bible.
right.
It's like, that's just kind of weird. Well, he looked at the voodoo doll. He's like, yep, this is an actual voodoo doll. And just kind of set it aside. Then shit started happening in his house.
Hmm.
Like the first night, he had gone downstairs to get a glass of water, and he had this light that just kept flickering and flickering. And he ran upstairs and grabbed his camera and hit record and said, hey, something weird's going on, and walked down the stairs and showed. He's like, see, you can see these lights, they're not flickering, but that
Right.
light's flickering. So he goes over there, and it looks like a cloth. It's a long like rectangular light
Mm-hmm.
that's cover is like cloth, and it looks down in there, and they're like doing it like one will start lighting up, the other one will start lighting up, and then they both shut down.
Gotcha.
They never come full light. And he's like, I don't know what's causing this. So he unplugs the light.
Makes sense.
It's still doing it for a good 10 to 15 seconds after he unplugs it.
Oh, shit.
So then he's sitting down the next day recording for YouTube and talking about something. Here's a thud. And he's like, what the hell was that? And as he gets up, here's another thud. And he kind of pulls the blinds back because he's got a sliding glass door there.
Mm-hmm.
2 crows had flown into his sliding glass door and died.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And I mean, the blinds were closed so that they could see that what they're flying into. It's not like, because birds will fly into windows from time to time.
Right. Yeah, I've seen it happen in stores,
Yeah, but they won't if there's a cover or something, even on the inside, because they can see the solidness. So then the next day, he said he woke up and there was like 50 flies in his office. And he's like, it took him forever to get them out.
Hey, I've seen Amityville Horror. Having that many flies in your house is not a good thing.
Yeah, and then next day he gets up and it's just a downpour. Apparently he lives in southern Florida. And he's like, this is normal weather, but there's like hundreds of earthworms outside on his patio, right outside his door. And this goes on for 2 days.
Huh.
So finally he's like, you know what, fuck this. I got a return address. I'm shipping this fucking voodoo doll back to the person that sent it to me.
Yeah.
Like, before I do, I kind of want to see what's in it. So he takes his knife and kind of cuts a hole in the back. He's like, there's dried blood in there, hair, and some other things. He's like, fuck this. Throws everything in the box. He's like, it's going out now.
No shit.
So then it comes back. He's like, since I shipped it off, things have calmed down, except for this fly crawling on my goddamn arm. But yeah, I mean, you don't want to open up things like that. You don't want to invite stuff, because even if what you are getting is harmless, the intentions behind you having somebody buying something like that can manifest something that's not harmless.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly.
You're not ordering that without thinking, ooh, I wonder if it's haunted. That's like wanting it to be haunted.
Exactly. Now there's a law in psychology called contagion. Now what this means is what it is you transfer, or energy gets transferred from a device, or gets transferred to an object from a being, and that's kind of where voodoo dolls get their power. You transfer the essence of the person that you want to harm in it. Now, it's also what brings celebrity or celebrity owned products huge prices on auctions because, they are now endowed with their energy. So people,
Right.
will pay big money for this shit. And that's just the nature of it. But the reason I'm bringing this up is there was actually a study. I had to look it up and find it here. There was a study done. It's called the hot sauce paradigm, where they did kind of a voodoo. They did a voodoo doll thing, but they also did this other thing where instead of stabbing the voodoo doll, which that was all part of the thing, they also used hot sauce, and instead of stabbing it, you aggressively added hot sauce to a food item that person would potentially eat. So and it was done as an aggressive control type of thing. It was a behavior modification thing
Right.
for people that had issues with anger problems.
Right.
But it was interesting that they use a device like a voodoo doll to represent the target of these people's aggression, and then they use a voodoo doll for them to get their aggression out.
Right.
By stabbing with pins or knives.
Right.
Now, is that a good idea in the long run? No, I don't think so.
So I think I've told you before, but I don't know if I've told our audience. I mean, if you've watched anything, I manage 2 liquor stores.
Mhm.
Well, both of these stores are haunted. I'll start with the one that I'm at a lot of times right now. While I'm in there and nobody else is here in there, I'll hear cooler doors open and close. I just ignore it.
Right.
Because why? I've got to be there the whole day.
Yeah.
And usually when I'm there, it's daylight and it doesn't bug you much during the day.
Mm-hmm.
Our night guy, on the other hand, one day we had these Kratom packages like taped to the plexiglass because we have a plexiglass barrier because COVID.
Right.
And he said it was hung like this and lifted off like that and then pulled off from the tape and floated out and dropped next to him on the ground. Now, if it had just dropped from where it was, there's a good 2 foot of counter left that it could have dropped on.
Right.
And another time he's there, we have a speaker at work that he plays music through it all night while he's there.
Mm-hmm.
This night he was watching TV. So he had his phone turned off. Well, the speaker, you have to have a passcode in order to log on
Okay.
to connect your phone. And even then, when you do connect, you crank up the volume on your phone, and that only brings the volume up halfway on the speaker. If you want to get it louder, you have to get out of the step ladder, get up there and push the button to turn it all the way up.
Gotcha.
So he's waiting on customers, he's ringing people up, and then all of a sudden music just starts blaring at top volume out of that. So not only you can't log into it without a passcode, but you can't turn it all the way up without going up there and doing it manually.
Oh shit, that's fucking crazy.
And he said it did this for like 4 minutes, and other customers had heard it too. So that's, and he's had like people tap him on the shoulder that weren't there.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of times he'll just set it up as, oh, it's just the DTs. Now the other store, I have seen stuff in. We have cameras in every area of the store.
Right.
And the quality of the video is crystal clear.
Okay.
There's also, it also records audio. I don't hear the audio unless I play it back, a recording or something. Well, in where we sort our empties and our mop bucket and stuff and fill the mop bucket, that room, the light's always off, but they're night vision cameras. So you can see everything. I have sat there and looking at the cameras one day and watched orbs floating through that room. And there's been like at least 20 to 30 times where I'm standing at the counter looking out, and out of the corner of my eye see a dark figure walk from the back stock room into the office.
Huh.
And only once have I gone to look to see if it was anybody, and it was nobody. After that, I ignored it.
Yeah, Jesus.
So earlier this week, the girl we have working over at that store, she's there, and I'm at the store over here, and I get a text. Holy shit, I just saw the ghost. And me being me, my response is, where and what did it look like? She said she was walking into the office, and she said you could watch the cameras because she froze at the office door because it popped right out in front of her and then disappeared that quick.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, what did it look like? And she's like, it was either an old man or an old woman, but its hair was plastered to its face. You know, think of basically the kind of like the Ring Grudge type shit.
Right.
And then later on that same day, we have to, when I open the store, I turn off the compressor, and you have to do it outside behind the building. And we leave it off for like an hour or two because ice builds up on the line outside and it will burn up the compressor. So I turned it off for her that day. And when she said she went out to turn the compressor back on, had a box in the door to keep the door open so she can get back in, because that door, you can open it from the inside, but you can't open it from the out because it always stays locked. So she went, turned the compressor on, turned around, the door's closed.
No shit.
So she came back and she took a picture of where the box was located. Now this box probably weighed about 10 pounds.
So
Not
heavy
super-
enough to keep a door open.
Right. And like if the weight of the door had closed it, it would have been, right up against the door. In the picture, the box was that far from the door.
Oh shit. So somebody like kicked it.
Yeah. So, I mean, or grabbed it and pulled it backwards. So for anybody who are just listening, not watching, probably about 2 feet from the door. And she's like, I had to do the walk of shame around the outside of the building.
That's funny.
Yeah. But I mean, and then she's like, I can just creep out today. She's like, what do I do to change it? I'm like, play classic rock. I said it likes classic rock.
It likes classic rock.
I've always, when I play classic rock, it calms down. The energy changes in the building. It's weird.
Well,
she's like, well,
at least you know that though, so you can.
Right. And she's like, well, I'm playing punk rock. I'm like, are you trying to piss it off? Like, nobody likes punk rock except for you.
So going back to the classic rock thing. So after I was out there, my parents are giving me a lift to the airport, and I'm sitting in their car. Now my parents are, they like 60s pop music. So they like bands like Hermits and stuff like that, Tommy James and the Shondells, that's their niche. Well, we're listening to this classic rock station out of Lansing, and they're playing a lot of stuff and it's 2 for Tuesday, and they're playing a lot of stuff that didn't get radio play in a classic rock station when I used to live there. The terms for classic rock are now just obviously just about age of how old is the song, because it's a classic rock station, my parents are a lot more tolerant to what they listen to. Now we're sitting there driving along, and I'm looking at, they've got a touch screen in their car, and I'm looking at classic rock 94.9. It's Poison's Nothing But a Good Time is played, and I'm sitting there just looking around in the thing. Reese has got his headphones on, so he's not paying attention at all. And so I took a photo of it, and it's like, we're in this car listening to Poison driving down the highway. What the fuck is wrong with you two? I mean, I still won't listen to that shit willingly. I will always change the channel, but they didn't bat an eye. But God damn it, you play the TV station or something on the television that they don't like, they'll change the motherfucker instantly. They get a commercial that they don't like, they'll change that channel. But they're listening to a double take of fucking Poison. We're like 7 minutes of Poison, and doing 75 miles an hour. Shit, we probably did 15 miles of nothing but Poison.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I remember going to the bar on Classic Rock Night and they're playing Guns N' Roses. I'm like, oh, fuck this.
Oh yeah, I have a Classic Rock station hooked up in my car, and GNR and Metallica's Black Album are played on that a lot.
I mean, for me, it's like I used to like Guns N' Roses, but the fact that they're now classic rock, I'm just like, I'm not that old.
Right. I have a hard time with that too. It's like, they're playing, and the other thing too is they're playing songs on these classic rock stations that when they were the hard rock stations back in the day wouldn't play.
Right.
Anyway, that's a side tangent. We'll get back to paranormal, because I used to work in a school that was haunted as well. And I worked with this little Cambodian woman who was definitely an empath. And she had she was like the fucking kid from Sixth Sense. I mean, she saw dead people all the time and would tell me about it. She would say one day she was in her bedroom just waking up, and how she said it, because she's a little Cambodian woman, she's like, this grandma in a bathrobe is walking by my bed, she started on one side and walked all the way around my bed smoking. And he says, I didn't say anything to her. I just watched her. She's looking at me and I'm looking at her. And then all of a sudden she said her husband from downstairs yelled up, who's smoking? And her 3 kids were downstairs with the husband. So she was the only one upstairs. So he was asking her if she is smoking. And she said, then the grandma disappeared after that. But, those are the type of stories that she was telling. Well, when you kind of talk about this shit, like you and I will probably see some kind of activity later on this evening after doing this, because every time you manifest this shit to happen. So she was telling me these different stories about this, and then I walked into a bathroom and we had these tables that were in the hallway just outside the bathroom. As I'm walking out, I catch out of the corner of my eye, there's a little boy, probably about somewhere between 6 and 8 years old, sitting with a blue and white striped shirt with a almost a Karen haircut, the Dutch boy style haircut, sitting there. And I stopped and I turned, because I thought, well, maybe a teacher had brought in their student or their son and dressed him up like a colonial idiot and sitting there. And I turned, there's nobody sitting there. So the first thing I did is I ran to the ladies that I was working with them. I'm like, oh my God. And I was telling them, I saw this little boy sitting there, but he wasn't there. And the other lady's like, you two stop it right now. You're freaking me the fuck out. No more. So we stopped talking about ghosts around her for a couple of days, but that one got me.
So I don't know if I ever, like I told you that the house that I owned here in town with my ex-wife was haunted before. I've told you that. Yeah. Well, there was one time after I'd gotten divorced, a friend of mine was living in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
We get home from work and he went downstairs and I'm fiddling around on the computer because I always had to do some computer stuff before I went to work or went to bed. And he comes upstairs and he's like, hey, come here for a minute. I'm like, okay. So I go downstairs with him into the basement. And he's got this large headboard. And this headboard is like hard, like almost oak. That's how hard it is.
Mm-hmm.
And we walk up there and he had one of those standing floor lamps that had like different sections with light bulbs.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Well, a light bulb was laying from the top one on top of his headboard.
Oh.
I'm like, that's weird as hell. He's like, why? I said, because if that had fallen out of there and hit here,
It would have
it would
broke.
have it would have shattered.
Yeah.
And right after I said that, it rolled off the bed and shattered.
Oh, Jesus.
And I was like, yeah, sucks to be you. I went upstairs.
I'm not cleaning it.
Nope. I'm like, yeah, that basement was bad. But I'm gonna have the peanut gallery come in and tell you a story real quick about
Oh,
her experience with Ouija boards, and I'm gonna go pee.
absolutely.
Yeah. So in college, you know, you're kind of dumb. And
Typically, yeah.
yeah. So the girls that lived across the hall from me, we were really good friends. And my one girlfriend was into like the occult, and you know, she was probably one of the first people that I was around that, you know, back in the late 80s, we didn't call it mindfulness, and we didn't call it, you know, being an empath or anything like that.
Right.
But she was probably one of the first people that was and is some of those things. And she had spent time in India, and so had a bigger worldview than I did.
Mm-hmm.
And so she and I and her roommate, and I think maybe one other person that lived on our floor, she had a Ouija board, and she's like, let's play with the Ouija board. And I'm just like, okay, because I'd never had one or
Why
used
not?
one. And yeah, sure, why not? Thinking, yeah, it's all fake and whatever. And something joined us, and we had conversations with it, and at some point realized, and over a course of time, you know, it
Right.
wasn't just one time, it was multiple times. And then we decided that this was probably really kind of dumb because it got very creepy,
Uh-huh.
and she threw it away in the dumpster.
Okay.
And a few days later, it was back in her room.
Oh.
And I need to message her and find out whatever happened to that thing. Because
I would bury it in a cemetery and never turn around.
yeah, I don't know whatever happened with it. Because I don't know, we moved on to other things, but I don't know that it ever went away.
Right.
But yeah. So then it was after that I'm like, yeah, no more Ouija boards.
It's probably a good idea. Yeah.
Because even if you say goodbye, if
The
it would
energy-
want to say goodbye, it doesn't.
The energy's still there, so
So
the damage has already been done.
yep. So yeah, not a thing to play with. And I've told all the kids, we're like, don't mess with Ouija boards. Bad news.
Don't bring them in the house.
Yeah, that too.
Or tarot cards.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's my story.
That's crazy. That's crazy that it shows up again.
Yeah. I'm gonna message my friend and be like, hey, whatever happened to that dumb Ouija board?
We don't speak of Ouija board.
Right? Probably not. I'm being kicked out. See you later.
But see you. Thank you for the story.
Yes. So the moral to today's story is don't actively try to make contact with the other side, because you never know what you're going to get.
And it's never, it may seem benign, but it's never benign.
No, it's
No.
always a ploy. I mean, it's a Ouija board. They'll tell you they're a little kid. They'll misspell words all the time.
Uh-huh.
They're doing that to get you to feel sorry for them, and then you keep talking to them and keep talking to them, and basically you're opening the portal wider and wider and wider the longer you're on it.
Yes.
Same with tarot cards. I was dumb enough to play with them when I was younger, and they say do not do readings for yourself. And since I was dumb enough to play with them, I was dumb enough to do a reading for myself. And the card that I chose for myself, you know, I started having weird stuff happening. I'm like, the tarot cards, when I touched them, the energy just felt off to me. Everything, it just felt weird. I'm like, so I threw them away
Yeah.
and thought nothing of it. Well, like 2-3 days later, I see that card laying next to the bed that I used to represent me.
Uh-huh.
I threw the shit away. So I threw it away again. 3 days later, it shows up again. So I tear it up and then throw it away. Then like a week goes by, I'm like, okay, good. And then I pull back the blankets to get in bed, and it's laying right there in bed in one piece. No tears, no marks on it, nothing.
That's fucked up.
I don't remember how I got rid of it. There's parts of my life that I black out on purpose.
Uh-huh.
And I think that was one of them, but I
Which-
did eventually get rid of it.
Which makes sense. I would totally I totally respect blocking that shit out.
Yeah.
Because what's the quickest way to return to bad behaviors or bring bad energy back in your life is to remember it.
Right. Right. And I mean, it's using that type of stuff, you're messing with forces that you do not understand.
Right.
You know, you're not a scientist. You don't have protective gear or anything where you can do tons of experiments on something to see what's going to work.
No shit.
And there's really no good protection against the other side except for your own energy.
The best protection is just not to get involved.
Right. Because like I had a conversation with my counselor about this stuff, and she's like, well, have you ever thought about exploring that further? I'm like, fuck no.
No, that's
She's
not
like-
one you're gonna send me down.
She's like, but think about all the people that you could help. I said, helping people is great, but when it endangers me and my loved ones, it is
Mhm.
not great. And she's
Exactly.
like, oh, good point. I
And-
said,
Even like when I was talking about chaos magic earlier too, is your intent and what you actually say matters. You know, because the other side, the universe, they all have a sadistic side. Oh wait,
Right.
that's the only side they have.
right.
Cruel and sadistic. So you could say, you know, you could create a sigil, create a talisman or whatever you wanted to do, and you want to put out there that you want to be rich, but you don't say how.
Right.
So you're walking to the mailbox, car jumps a curb, hits you. You know, now you're paralyzed, but that car that jumped the curb, that dude was drunk, and now you can sue him and his insurance company. And guess what? You're rich, but you're also a paraplegic.
Right.
So they have a sick, twisted way of getting the shit to, if you don't know your boundaries or your intent, or you're not clear on your intentions.
Right.
And that's something you need to have with, you have to set boundaries. If you were to use some kind of, if you were to use tarot cards, there are strict boundaries. You do it on yourself. Ouija board, you don't do it by yourself.
You just don't do it.
You just don't do it. You know, so
It's like somebody who, like, I had somebody after my brother passed that wanted to come through and, you know, sage the house, but she had never done it before. I said, you're not coming anywhere near this house with sage, because if you sage a house, not knowing what you're doing, and you screw something up, you're inviting more bad shit in.
right. Which is pretty much what I do believe happened in 2 of my relationships. Because with my son's mom, she had somebody come over and sage her house. Now this lady claims, you know, that she knows what she's doing, that she owned, you know, owned a holistic medicine, yada yada yada. But everything went to shit after we bought that house. And then my life didn't get any better after she was out of the house. It wasn't until I was out of the house did things start turning around for me.
Right.
In this house, my ex-wife did it, and our relationship never recovered from it. So, I mean, that saged us right into divorce.
Right.
So you do need to, don't don't meddle with things you're not really comfortable with. Don't buy a voodoo doll because you think it's cool. Don't buy a shrunken head because you think it's cool. You know, there are, just don't, yeah.
Right. I mean, some things, I mean, like, I know there's the whole goth lifestyle where I've got to wear something with a pentagram and all this other stuff on it. But the symbology of that pentagram, you understand what it is looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
And by understanding it, yet still purchasing it, you're inviting more of that energy into your life.
Right.
I'm not telling you how to dress. If you know how to protect yourself, you'll be fine. But that's just it. You gotta know how to protect yourself. And yeah, that staging of your house didn't work. Because
No.
I tell you right now that when we were there, I swear to God, I saw probably like a 5 or 6 year old little kid poke their head around the kitchen doorway.
Mm-hmm. And it
That's-
wasn't goofball.
No, because it was too small to be her. I mean,
Yeah.
she's small, but she ain't that small.
Right. Yeah. I see a black shape walk across that same doorway that you're talking about, you know, once or twice a week
Right.
there. So and now that my son, so my ex-wife and goofball moved out, my son moved in, and I haven't seen any activity since we got back.
It's a good chance I went with her because I think it was attached to her.
I-
If it's hey, that's just it. People with negative energy attract those things to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like attacking somebody who's not here to defend herself, but that's all she had was negative energy.
Right. She didn't believe it was negative though. That was one of her biggest downfalls. Now, when I walked into the home after we got back from visiting you guys in Michigan, I mean, obviously I was greeted by my dogs,
Mm-hmm.
but it was just me, and it was just my girls, and my cat. But he's not a cat. But there was a different vibe
Mm-hmm.
in the house. I mean, I was standing there going, this is all mine now. You know, how do I want to, then you get the whole thing. I can put shit over here now. I can move this way. I can do, and I don't have to ask anybody's permission.
Right.
There was some of that jovial thought process that went through my head, but waking up the next morning, it was just a different aura in the whole
Right.
place. And like I said, I have not seen any activity in the home since.
Well, good. I mean, it sucks for Goofball,
Yeah.
but whatever that is probably attached to her. Not to Goofball, but
Right. Yes. Exactly.
So, and I mean, people like that tend to attract things like that. Because I mean, we talked about in the law of attraction, all that shit. Negative attracts negative, positive attracts positive.
Like attracts like.
Yeah. And I mean, you and I we're not the most positive, but we do attempt to.
We at least make an effort to change our behavior when we recognize what we're doing.
Right. We don't sit there with the woe is me, I'm the victim,
Right.
all that shit. Because when you start acting like the victim, you become a victim.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is going to go wrong in your life because you're inviting it to go wrong in your life.
Right. And to bring this around full circle, watching enough of those episodes, Tanner is actually pretty negative in that show.
Yep.
And that's why I think he gets fucked with more than anybody else on that show, because of his energy.
Right. Well, I mean, we didn't talk about it, but one of the tests that they will do is what they call the blind spirit box.
Oh, yeah.
Where one of them will sit down in a room by themselves, blindfolded, with headphones into the spirit box, and then noise canceling headphones over top of those headphones. And then the rest of them will be walking through the house asking questions. Well, Casey refuses to do it anymore because he did it once when they're in an one of those abandoned prisons,
Mm-hmm.
and he thought somebody was. I mean, I seen twice now where he did it. One was before the prison, and during this one, he has this necklace on. The necklace lifts up in front of him, and then drops.
Oh shit.
But in the prison, he felt like somebody was choking him. He felt somebody's hand around his throat.
Oh fuck that.
Yeah, and there was nobody in there. I mean, you saw it on camera when he reacted to it and stuff, but there was nobody there.
Mm.
So he abjectly refuses to do it.
Wow.
And
I don't blame him after that. Fuck that too.
nope. But it's usually Tanner or Colton who have to do it. Which probably, they probably feel like, Aaron with Zach. So
Yeah, exactly.
but yeah, so I mean it's a good show. We talked about it a little bit in this almost hour and a half episode.
Yeah.
But hey, it's for entertainment. But yeah, I mean, if you like that type of shit, check them out. But to me, the one red flag that I see out of this show is something happens in every episode.
Exactly. Like we watched the one with the farmhouse and the cornfields.
Yeah.
And like they just walk into the home and all of a sudden the fucking kitchen doors, the cupboard doors are all of them.
Yep.
Moving. Like, and they're like, what the how is this got blah blah blah. It's like, but yeah, it's something always. And when you're doing this, the other thing I noticed when they did that blind spirit box, when you see on Zach's show when they do it, it's stuff is relatively vague. It's
right.
Like, what are you missing? Body. It's like, okay, yeah, well, you're a spirit and you're missing your body. Okay. Here
Right.
it was like, are you good or evil? And it's like diabolical.
Right.
So some of them are on theirs, their spirit box is maybe it's tuned in a little finer than Zach and the boys is, but it's always so spot on in the responses that they give.
Not always. Some of them they aren't. Because I've watched some episodes and they're asking questions like that has nothing to do with what they're talking about. So, but there are quite a few where it's spot on the whole way.
Yeah.
And that's just too good to be true.
Right.
If something's too good to be true, question it.
Right.
But I mean, we talked about it before we started recording, though. I mean, it could be that they have investigated hundreds of other places where there's no activity.
And they only show us the good ones.
Right. So.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, because hell, it took 3 seasons of Ghost Hunters before the chair moved.
True. And nobody wants to see like the Robinson family that retreat where it's just a bunch of people sitting around going,
Right.
Wonder if something spooky's gonna happen. Maybe. No, it's just Uncle Willie getting drunk again.
Right. And see, and watching this stuff suckered me into this one video titled Real Paranormal Activity. And so I watch it. And it was like the YouTube channel was like FYR or something like that. And it was four basically shorts that were videos that were possessed by the police departments in these areas.
Oh,
and I'm like, the first one, halfway through it, I'm like, this is all fake and staged.
Oh, yeah.
And then the guy that was in the first one was also in the final one. Now I know it's all fake and staged. You just verified it for me. Thank you.
Right. Nice.
But I mean, it's that time of year, it's fun to get scared once in a while. It's not
absolutely.
It's not fun to invite bad shit into your home.
No. So with that, I was be careful. research before you try anything, and always try it with somebody who's, if you're gonna try any of this stuff, get a spirit guide or somebody that's gonna fucking help you,
Right.
who's done it a bunch, that knows what
Research,
they're doing.
research protection from the stuff before you do it.
Yes.
Go in prepared. So, with that being said,
Insert ghost here.
and a very boo to everyone.
All right.